Oh, I see. Sorry, I didn't want to like yell into the mic. Oh, there it is. The second one, DataWorks one. Great. All right. Oh, okay. You all were starting to quiet down on your own. That's very good. We'll give you a round of applause for recognizing that the session is going to go ahead and get started. So if you were looking for FASB DataWorks, providing resources to help researchers navigate data management and sharing policies, you are in the right place. So congratulations for making it to the 4:30 talk on Tuesday. But before we get started with our roundtable session, I just want to acknowledge Sumin Lee from Meteor Biotech, who is the sponsor of this session. So we want to thank them for their sponsorship. It's their first time coming to the ABRF annual meetings. So, you know, if you have a chance to interact with them outside of this session, please give them a thanks for their support, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to have all this great meeting content. So. All right, so we are here at the end of the day, and I am known for being a high energy person. We are here to have this be an interactive session with a little bit of presentation. I am joined, my name is Yvette Seeger. I am the session chair for this production here, and I am joined by my colleague Stephanie Hagstrom, who is a program manager for the DataWorks Help Desk. So we're both from FASB. So Stephanie is one of our remote employees. So she's based in California, and I'm based in Rockville, Maryland. So just a little bit of our framework for the session today is we'll start with an introduction. Those of you who are somehow not familiar with FASB, we'll make sure you know who we are. This is a refresher for Mark Lively. And then we'll give you an overview of the DataWorks initiative. You know, if you don't know that Mark was a past president of FASB, then that's my joke. But then we'll get to the real heart of this session, which is how can we work together through the DataWorks initiative, support ABRF members and cores, because we have talked over and over again, and this isn't my first rodeo with ABRF, you all generate data. You are approached by scientists to prepare data, and how can we work with you and support you? So we will have these key questions that you can see up here on the screen. Keep those in mind, you know, that's what we'll be doing for about a 30-minute exercise, and then we'll have some brief report outs, and then we'll wrap up with, after we're all energized by engaging in a roundtable, what are our opportunities to collaborate besides how we're already collaborating with ABRF? What are new and novel ways that we can help each other? Does that sound like a good plan? Sound like a party? All right. All right, so just a reminder of who FASB is. So FASB is the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, and we represent 22 member societies, including ABRF, that you can see in the top row. And this equates to about 100,000 individual scientists. And what I love about working at FASB, I just had my 11th anniversary, is the breadth of the science we represent. So I'm trained as a geneticist, but I've been able to continue expanding my own understanding of biology throughout my time at FASB, just through working with the different disciplinary societies. And you might be familiar with our programming to support researchers. We've worked really closely with ABRF over the years, and a lot of this is coming through the Office of Public Affairs, where we both sit. The Public Affairs Department is broken into Legislative Relations and Advocacy. I'm the Director of Science Policy, and out of the Science Policy piece, we have spun up a new department in Strategic Initiatives, one which is focused on diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and then data sharing and reuse. And these all came out of an annual science policy symposium that we have with our members. And you know, data sharing and reuse came to the fore earlier than the actual symposium. So our symposium was in 2020. A lot of things happened in 2020 is the way I'll phrase it. But we recognize that not only was NIH coming forward with a new policy for data management and sharing, that data needs were not getting smaller, and there was an opportunity for FASIB to be a convener in this space. So that led to that science policy symposium in the fall of 2020 led to a working group that explored deeper what could FASIB's role be in this space in data sharing, data management, data sharing, and data reuse. And ultimately we came up with a product area that we call FASIB DataWorks, which its goal is to bring the biological and biomedical research communities together to advance human health through data sharing and reuse. This was supported by a 3-year, $1.5 million investment. And the goals of DataWorks are to increase researcher understanding of data management and sharing in the biosciences, so build that skill base. I know that data management and sharing wasn't something that was part of my grad school curriculum. And the other piece was to support researchers towards fair practices to accelerate and enhance biosciences research. So we know as the US government is looking more and more towards public access to data, that there's meant to be, how can we maximize our dollar, maximize the research that we are getting out of federal grants so that we can reuse this. And this is a longer term DataWorks goal. The DataWorks programs, there are 3 that are active right now. There's the DataWorks Salons, the Prize, the Help Desk. So the Salons, we came up with a very spiffy name for monthly virtual conversations. They're meant to be conversation spaces. It says it's a webinar format, but it really is meant to be a discussion, active chat. If you've ever joined a salon, I know DataWorks salons are well attended by ABRF members. They're really meant to be a conversation with leaders in the field, and then the chat is, as we like to say, it's always lit, that the researchers are helping each other, and they'll highlight resources that maybe even the DataWorks team wasn't familiar with, or they'll say, hey, I've tried this. The DataWorks Prize is an annual challenge prize. Currently, it's sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, and it has had a grand purse amount of $500,000. This is sponsored through the Office of Data Science Strategy. The first year was looking at who are the leaders in data sharing and reuse. There was a prize for data sharing and there was a prize for data reuse. And it was looking at who are the people who have been working in this space for a long time and having the opportunity to reward them. Last year's prize, the 2023 prize, was looking at it took it down a lot of levels. What are the strategies that individual labs are using or research teams are using to share and reuse data within research teams? So it was looking for data sharing recipes. And then we're still working on the prize challenge for 2024, but it will be coming. We anticipate launching that in June. And then the last piece, which I will turn it over to my colleague Stephanie to talk about, is the help desk, which if you've walked by the registration booth and you've seen Stephanie, she's probably trying to throw chocolate at you as you're going by to talk to her. This is really our live how-to help desk and chatbot feature to provide information to help researchers navigate data management and sharing policies, specifically starting with the National Institutes of Health. That was our pain point for entry, but also just looking at what are data management and sharing best practices. And we've been in a couple of sessions throughout this conference and data keeps coming up. I mean, it's not that this conference is free of data. So I will turn it over to Stephanie, but before I do, I just want to highlight that this is meant to be a really we have QR codes throughout, so you can feel free to take pictures or scan any of the codes. We won't freak out. There's nothing proprietary here. So I will turn it over to my colleague Stephanie to talk a bit more about Help Desk.
Thank you, Yvette. So yeah, I've seen many of you walking by, and I was throwing candies at you as you went by. Thanks a lot. So I'm the newest member of the DataWorks team. I'm a program manager of the Help Desk, and I came in almost 10 months ago. And when I came in, we had a website up, and we wanted to have an interactive help desk. And so we went to work on that, and we spent the first few months, probably 5 or 6, talking to researchers and asking them what they want, and looking at different platforms where we might house something like that. And the end result was we knew we wanted to provide guidance for biological and biomedical research community and have them navigate and adopt data sharing and reuse policies. So that kind of was our beginning. And so what we did, where am I, how do I change it? It didn't do it. Okay. So what we did was, after talking to researchers for a few months, what we discovered was they really just wanted to know how to do things. Like, just tell me how to write a data management plan. Tell me how. Oh, it auto-advanced? Did that on its own. And we kept hearing this over and over and over again. You know, it was like, just tell me how. I don't have time for this. I mean, that's terrible to say, but they just wanted to know, how do you do this? How do you write these data management plans, in particular for NIH, which at that time was the first round of applications. And so we started looking at that, and we developed how-to guides, simple how-to guides. And then that led to a landing page that we needed. So we ended up building like a house for the help desk. And what you're looking at here, and I want to scroll because I'm used to doing demos, is this is the landing page for the help desk. And in addition to this here, we also now have blogs and different articles that we're writing about data management in general, in the field of data management and things that are happening. It just advanced again, didn't it? Yeah. So now we have a help desk. I mean, we have a home page and a landing page for people to come for data management. And we have featured articles that relate to data management topics. We have our salons on there. We have recordings of our salons on there. And then once you're there, you can go into our knowledge base, which now is this one. And this knowledge base is built on a platform that is similar to Zendesk, kind of one of those question and answer kind of platforms. And it's a knowledge base. So why is it doing this? Keeps advancing.
I have my thoughts, but.
What, am I doing the wrong
No,
button?
you're not doing anything. I think there's a setting on it.
Oh, there's a setting on it. So I have to keep looking down. So the knowledge base has how-to guides. And right now we have 13 categories and 40 guides related to data management. We started in January, we started at the neuroscience conference with a beta test of this. And at that point, we only had 12 guides on specifically how to write a data management plan. And we met with a lot of researchers there, including NIH program managers. And they looked at the guides and they said, this is exactly what we need. Simple little guides on how to do these things. So we took off from there, and from the 12 after that, we came back and we wrote another, well, now we have over 40 guides. And it's beyond NIH at this point. Now it is how to manage data. How do you do README files? How do you structure your data? What is the metadata things you need? Really general guides. And what we have found, we met with the NIH after the first round of applications, and they said that 20% of the applications that went in had zero budget. Researchers said that they don't need any money for these data management plans. None of these should be zero. None of them. So we realized at that point that there really was some things that needed to be taught at this point. And so we started doing salons on how to budget. We were featuring our guide on how to budget, what you can budget for, what you can't budget for, and so on and so on. So every guide. Our number one guide that is the most looked at is how to find a repository. And so we've done a couple of salons to match that on how to find a repository. Seems to be one of the pain points. The second is budgeting. And then we have quite a few people looking at some of the other ones. But now we're getting more into managing research data. And in particular, before you even get your project started, getting your file system and your folder system and everything in your lab set up. So we're going in that direction now. We also have a live chat bot, And in that, there's a search engine where you can look for a topic. If it doesn't come up, it will ask you, is there something, that you have a question? They send it in, we get notified, and then we find general questions our team can answer. And while I am here, I'm hoping that that's one of the things that we can partner with ABRF with, is having some more expertise around some of the deeper topics that I can't answer. And so I'm in talks with the possibility of getting with some of the committees, the working groups here, and having an opportunity to join one of those monthly meetings and have that discussion. So I can have somebody that can answer these questions that I can't answer. Okay, so that's the next step. And then the most important thing, at the bottom of the page, when you go to the website, there's a place for a newsletter, for you to join the newsletter. And so if you do that, oh, look at this. If you go to the bottom of the page, on the landing page, there's a little thing for a newsletter. And if you go down there and you click on it, you're going to get to this page at DataWorks. And there's a lot of different newsletters at FASB. There's a lot of different newsletters, and there's one that says data management, and that's the one I want you to click. Join in and wait and get more information. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm much better at doing live demos, so that was a little awkward for me. Apologize.
Well, that and, your slides kept auto-advancing. It's always technology. So anyway, now we're into the roundtable part of the discussion. And so, as I promised you in the outline of our session today is, now the question is, how might DataWorks support ABRF members and cores? And just to preview before we let you loose and have table conversations, is what we're starting to see with the community. So we've talked a little bit about FASB, we talked about DataWorks, but now, we're really centering on what are the policy expectations. NIH policy has been in effect for over a year at this point. NSF has been updating its policy, but you might have heard about the Nelson memo coming from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Everyone is thinking about how do all these different policies intersect. And so the key thing for us at FASB and through the DataWorks team is we're at this critical tipping point between the policy and the implementation. The policy has been there. We're trying to create the infrastructure to support the implementation, but we're still at this awkward teenage stage of we're ready to do things, but we're not quite ready to do things. So, the drivers are there, but we don't actually have all the actions aligned. So the example that Stephanie used a couple of times is that people are making the data management plans and they're submitting them with their grants, but they haven't communicated with how much does it cost for data storage and what should I put in my grant regarding data management. There are going to only be more expectations from funders, and not that they want to be punitive, it's just they have to be accountable for the funds that they are distributing. And as I've heard in previous sessions, this is also a rigor and reproducibility aspect. This isn't just an exercise of, an agency saying, we want you to do more paperwork. This is actually trying to keep track of what has been done in an experiment and making sure that it's rigorous and reproducible. So we're seeing all of that coming through as well. And then, what we're seeing in the community is, even though we have these policy drivers and we're on that awkward playground seesaw of policy and implementation, is that there's still confusion regarding the expectation. Mainly, I would say that for a lot of researchers, they haven't been prepared for data management and sharing, and they haven't been taught necessarily of how do I organize my metadata. And so, there's a gap for resources that we're trying to fill, or at least collate existing resources through DataWorks. So, one of the things that we certainly want to get out of this session, and hopefully it's useful for you, is we want to hear about your experiences. And so we have about 30 minutes allotted to an activity, and we'll kind of watch the ebb and flow. But, we want to have table discussions of what are you experiencing, and we can consolidate tables as well. There are 3 questions that I'll show on the next slide. what are your experiences? You can either do hard copy notes, or we have a Slido poll. So you can have somebody that's designated as a note taker and a reporter, and then we'll have brief report outs after we're broken out. So as not to spoil things, let's talk about your experiences. So these are the 3 questions we have for you. 1, what questions are you hearing from researchers related to data management? And that QR code is for our Slido, so you can digitally enter. Question 2 is, what are you having to do now that is new or different? And question 3 is, what specific best practices might ABRF be able to champion through DataWorks resources? And as I mentioned, ABRF has been great throughout the development of DataWorks. And so, we know you're handling a lot of data. So what gap can we help fill? So if you want to scan the QR code and go through Slido, or Stephanie has some very handy dandy DataWorks notebooks that she's handing out, we'll let you break out into your tables if you want to consolidate tables, and I'll let you know when 10 minutes have passed to keep you going through the 3 questions. Sound fair? I'm going to let them have adults. So. We're centrally, location. All right, I've got 10 minutes going for try to tackle question 1, and I will keep you on task.
about, so when I was at, obviously, I never had one. I asked most of the people, but that was not the example. I want to help organize.
So they just generically give out plastics to everybody as a STEM. They're going to be back in the hospital. They're going to have another box. So they have that data from the same data set, the same patient, I should say. They have the vaccination work. They probably have all kinds of
Yeah, well, I'm just saying,
metabolism types of things. They probably have cardiology workup. They have cancer screenings. They probably have questionnaires related to their lifestyle. There's all kinds of information generate information that might be in a different place. And so if there's a way that they can pass it in,
so every, I mean, that's an interesting that I really.
get back to a patient sample like that.
So one thing that actually would be really useful
And
is
the
to
vendor
start
responsibility.
collecting the cases of grants that were lost because of age. Implementation, yes. So that would have been an amazing resource for people like us on the ground trying to advocate for creation of such a
Every one of them has a requirement for
yeah.
storage of the data
The question is that, so you already have an idea of which one were yeah, well, that's I think is going to be an amazing for us. Right.
And I do have on my website, some, the line sites, environment store, where I have to write out. I have to labels, I have to filter, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
This is your friendly time check. You've gone through 10 minutes of that 30 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, I still have to interface with I don't know if they had one that is my, so my, what I've always said, the point, how I last meeting has these other, you tell us, so for example, there are also organizations that have developed their own solutions for their own generation. So all these are, and then so there are part of the program project, my chat support, you are your own generate and you see all, get to the conference and I saw getting across the actual not only, I mean, the guide, I written then I should have access to access. If there was a demand, that if you're serving for the class is what gets also, I think, trying to avoid. Like, that's why they're putting their head in the sand because they know that, oh, okay, you don't have to know it. That's why local that can what are you having to do now? I think each university has a local support but they can find local support like they were. No.
And it's not under DPP, it's not under the office of the director.
Yeah, I know. So you're yeah. Well, first of all, the first one, they spend a lot of money, but the young people typically be public money, so that's another piece of the, how do we change? Yeah, there is because if he's actually, you know, people say it's my data, but is it actually data? First of all, is that not the data? I'm sure. That's practical, that's practical. Yeah, not. Right. Or what? Right. Yeah, right. But those would be good. But it's becoming, so is that because the fact that that is something you want to and therefore
Good evening, guys. So, and every one of those has faced the same question. PDB faces the question of searching the number of police that they're on. They don't have to talk. They don't hang on to it.
I think it's all, I will not say.
Well, right.
That's also the institutional level one. But I mean, I say, that, for example, like, if you also have, for example, I have the.
All right, it sounds like you're having fun. We're cruising into that last 10 minutes of our 30 minutes. So remember, there will be brief report outs after this too. So organize your ideas. All right, so that 30 minutes went really quickly, didn't it? And you're all just going to ignore me. You want to keep talking. This is great. And you can ignore me if you want, but I promised you brief report outs. So it looks like Mark wants the microphone, so. Report out. So if you could give us like the highlights from your discussions, because the fact that I have to bust you apart is awesome. Like the fact that you were all chattering, hopefully you were chattering about data, but what did this table discuss?
Hi, Yvette. So we started a discussion about biospecimens and medical data that's associated with those. And then we got into the world of HIPAA a little bit, because that's, and medical records and how that's tied back to those sorts of samples. And that's, I was reminded that there are lots, everybody seems to have ways to deal with this. The CTSA program that you may be familiar with, that NCATS is responsible for, which, by the way, Barbara Alving was also responsible for, they require every single CTSA grant site to have a data management plan and ways to deal with the extensive data that they're collecting. So I think DataWorks could learn from talking to the CTSA people, their big consortium. How are they going? How's that going? The other big one that's been there a long time is the PDB, the Protein Data Bank, the crystallography database. Those guys have managed releases of great large sets of database to make accessible for a long time. So I think there are a lot of models out there, but it's so heterogeneous. The question that I think is how is DataWorks going to facilitate this without getting bogged down in a very, very down in the weeds of maybe how do you protect anonymized data from medical records or all of that stuff. CTSAs are heavily involved in that. So that's, you just learn from those guys. Nick, you want to take over?
So along that same line is, you know, all of these biospecimens that we have in our different banks, there's data that's probably in, for one sample, maybe in 10 different data repositories. How do we link those together to one sample? And so maybe having a repository just for samples that then somehow, if there was a way to create software that could reach out and then grab and link to these different data repositories. I don't know that that's really out there right now, but that could be a unique niche. And that makes those samples that much more valuable, because, you know, you could have a sample, we were talking about it, you know, we've got GWAS data on a very specific population, and I know that there's probably 20 different data sets that have come out of that. But then there's also other data that has probably been generated, you know, separate from GWAS, that, you know, might be proteomic data or something like that, but that's in a different repository. So I think that's something worth considering, because by having all that together, if somebody is looking for a set of samples, let's take, you know, 50 patients that you know, have had strokes, and you can then link that sample with all the different data associated with it and start to look at that. Imagine some of the you know, in silico studies you could be looking at and doing. That's data reuse on steroids. You can find your collaborators and you would know who has that sample if you want to go and do more studies based on it.
I think just being able to know where the data is and whom to contact would be the first, very most valuable. And if that system is set up well, you can then get the information you're looking for.
That would be a very unique and proprietary type of approach.
Excellent. Thank you for making more work for us, but I like the idea. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Good start. All right, this table, the real estate table. Oh, you're already reaching.
Okay, yeah, I drew the short straw. We had the benefit of having a combination of IT, bioinformatics, and core people here, so we get to compare and contrast. But sticking with the questions as presented, some of the things that we get from the PIs are simple things, very simple. Like they've got their head stuck in the sand. It's like, where do I store it? Can you do that for me? What do I do with my clinical research data? You know, and do you keep my data? And so they really need to start taking it more seriously. I know that there's threats that there's really going to be some teeth in the NIH coming back at them, but I don't know if they quite get it. They're busy. They're involved with their research, and I just don't understand if they really get it or not from some of the questions we're hearing. And then what have we had to do different? A few things. We've had to discuss a data management policy and start working on that. We've had to figure out, and this isn't true for all of us, but this is just a combination of some did, some didn't. We've actually had to investigate whether or not we could get space on the cloud, because from my own lab, we have a backlog of data that's been generated. It's already been turned into the PIs, but we keep it just as kind of a backup, just in case the dog eats the flash drive or whatever, And so we're thinking about taking these external hard drives that we've got and putting them on the cloud, and at the same time, we've got a budget for that. So we're actually going back to the administration and saying, hey, our guy is going to need X number of hours a week to do this, and we're not going to be generating income because he's not able to run a Luminex or run Flow or whatever he's supposed to be doing. So there's budgeting concerns, cost concerns, and so policy cost and the space for the cloud. And then lastly, we talked about what would be the specific best practices that we might champion, have the ABRF champion to the DataWorks. And one of them was I wasn't entirely sure, and I think this came from another suggestion that was made, that perhaps some of the DataWorks guidelines were more PI specific than core specific. And so we might have the ABRF champion policy and best practices that would benefit the cores to see what we need to do, and as far as our policy, our budgeting, our storage, or whatever we've got to do, and see what they come up with as far as that. And then and I know it's going to be different because we're dealing with genomics and flow cytometry and crystallography and whatever. But and then the other discussion we had, which was a lively discussion, talked about meta tags on the data and what would be recommended for the tags to identify that data later, and to bring it and to make it more usable, that kind of thing. And that's really, we did go off in the weeds a little bit, but those are the answers to the three questions. But we did have some other discussion too about some good stuff. So.
Persistent identifier.
Awesome. Yes. Last but not least, and we've had some attrition at this table, not because we ran people off. Who wants a microphone? All right.
So we had a shortage of core facility staff at this table. So we basically had some, administrators and library support staff. It was an interesting discussion, but to the specific questions, there was well, anyway. The questions we're hearing from researchers basically are just really basic level. They're basically not making the connection between, they're asking self-interest questions about how can I organize the data and make sure that I can find it when person X leaves, but they're not making the leap to the NIH mandates and how kind of the larger picture. So that was as far as we went. In my facility, nobody even talks to me about this. And actually, that's because I'm a very, very small core, and I specifically have a data management policy where I don't do data management. I give it to the PIs, and if they lose it, that is their problem. I don't have the bandwidth, truly, I don't have the bandwidth to handle any of this, and so that is where I draw the line. And so that actually kind of brought up to the next kind of point that we discussed, which was whose responsibility is this, and where are is it the individual core's responsibility, or is there an institutional responsibility to provide support for these policies? And I think at this table we kind of all leaned towards the idea that really this is the institutions should be providing support for the PIs who have these grants and have to meet these requirements. It shouldn't be falling on the cores, and to the extent that cores are involved in this, cores may also need help in meeting this, whether that is staff or training in instrument-specific data acquisition, anything, how to handle metadata, where is the metadata, if we're going to be teaching our users about how to comply with these requirements, we might need to be taught that ourselves. So, and then there was another point along that line of, well, we maybe don't need to duplicate this kind of role at every single institution, but have more, it might be sufficient to have regional pockets of knowledge of this. Which is where the ABRF chapters come in, might be a good way of providing that. So that was the summary of our discussion.
Excellent readouts. Thank you. I'm going to put this away, and then we will wrap up. I need to have like running shoes.
You don't have enough shoes, Beth.
I do not have enough shoes. I am going on record as saying I never have enough shoes. All right. Well, I appreciate you going through and having these conversations and just hearing your readouts. And I know we weren't able to have someone positioned at that table, but I know Stephanie was taking notes. It's reassuring to hear that you're hearing some of the same challenges we're hearing, but that you're also thinking forward with strategies that we can help. So we did the report outs, and then what we just wanted to close out with, and we're cruising right on time, is how can we work together? And we heard some ideas with the report outs. Again, we have another Slido if you wanted to add your thoughts there. Some of the possibilities that we brainstormed were curriculum, and I know that came up at our table, is, what are the obvious gaps that you're seeing in research or understanding of data management where a training would be helpful? Again, thinking about the regional chapters. Is there a course that we could travel with the chapters? And then also, providing resources on data management in terms of participating in the development of a help desk plan and implementation. I know Stephanie is always looking for additional resources, so she just plays a scientist on TV and leans on everyone else. And there are a couple of scientists on the public affairs team, but hearing what you are getting from researchers, what are the common concerns, and also incorporating your expertise into what we build out will hopefully lift the load for all of you. So thinking about that's what we've been considering. What resources or opportunities would you like to see offered through DataWorks? I don't know why the Slido isn't showing, but if you go back, here, if you want to scan this, if you're just thinking, you go a beer or two in to dinner tonight, I have some extra drink tickets. If you have great ideas, feel free to add them to the Slido, because we would like to hear, we want to work with ABRF. ABRF has been critical as we've developed this initiative, and we want it to be something that is helping you do your jobs well. So, Stephanie, did you have any last thoughts that you wanted to add?
I know it's been very, very, yes, I do.
No, I'm going to talk.
No, this has been really helpful. We've gotten into the weeds of the data itself, and that seems to be issues among the cores. And my role is to listen to what's happening, find where those pain points are, and see if we can't fill some of those pain points. And one of the ones I'm hearing over and over again is people need a bridge. And you mentioned it, I think, of the PIs getting some general management skills and maybe some of the onboarding of the core. And I'm hearing that from program managers as well on the big projects, where they're saying all these people are being given grants, but they don't know how to manage their data. And now we have these huge projects, and we're all supposed to be working together. Now I have to be curators to help because they don't know how to do it. So there's this kind of, I've seen more as being a bridge, helping ABRF cores, helping program managers, helping PIs, and their staff, because they're the ones that usually have to do it. So I'm thinking more like maybe a joint grant with ABRF of some sort where we can work together on some training programs and see if we can get some funding to get into helping with that, and be proactive in that. And we definitely have the connections for the people who are learning how to, the librarians, the people that are being trained in this, to help with that. So I'm encouraged by that, in the sense it's a terrible thing to be encouraged by, but there's a big hole.
There's a big hole, great.
I fill that hole, and that's, I'm seeing a lot of that. I was surprised that I'm seeing it here so much, actually, because to me this is the expert. These are the experts, right? And so, but also I'm going to need help if we expand this desk. I am a project manager and not a scientist, and I can do the general questions, but I cannot answer the questions that we were talking about over here, and the different types of data. I can make projects happen.
What my ask for you is, I just look for the experts to give to Stephanie, and she knows how to wrangle experts. She's very good at, she's an expert wrangler. So yeah, I have put our contact information up here. There's the QR code if you want to subscribe to our newsletter. Be sure to check the DataWorks newsletter or Data Management Sharing newsletter. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. There's our email. We're easy to find. We want to keep the conversation going. This has been absolutely delightful to hear how much conversation has been going on, and we appreciate you. We know that it's been a busy impact meeting for all of you, so for you to spend your time with us and think about how we can continue developing this resource to support science generally and also support cores is much gratitude to all of you. So we will hang around for a little bit, but that concludes our formal programming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And look at that, I didn't make the buzzer angry.
Thank you.
You gotta.
Thank you.